Good morning, good evening, and good day. I'm Francine, and I really love K-dramas. You're listening to Dramabuds, a Globe Studios podcast. So hello everyone. Welcome back to Dramabuds Season 2. Today's episode is a full-on concept paper presentation where I define terms and operationalize like what makes a K-drama a slice of life show. And I decided to make this episode because of how this word has been thrown around constantly in the K-drama fandom. For context, full disclosure, I saw several people describing Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha as a slice of life drama when I thought that this was very clearly a rom-com. I mean, it like when I think of what is like a quintessential rom-com, right? What are the elements to it? Like what are the common tropes? How do they usually approach issues and the setup and everything? Like this is textbook rom-com to me. And I thought that was I thought that was fact by now. I didn't think that was something to dispute. I didn't, yeah. And, just recently, I feel like we're starting to misconstrue slice of life because people are confusing, the genre with, just any show that has a chill vibe or healing themes or having a lot of characters that are highlighted at certain points. So yeah, today's concept paper presentation, I've spent so much time thinking about this, like really going through all the shows I've watched and thinking like, is this slice of life 100%? Would I classify this as slice of life? And then, finding the similarities, trying to further break them down into like sub genres maybe, or how like different shows who don't exactly have the same vibe, how are they all still considered slice of life? So, essentially, what is the genre? I have tried my hardest to really think about this, research, and only consider the shows that I've watched, because I have to, go through the entire journey of the show to really solidly say this is what the genre is. So, full disclaimer, I gotta do this because, I'm sure a lot of people have different opinions. This is all based on what I've watched and how I see things. It's going to be long and very nitty-gritty because I want to define every little word being thrown around. That's where people get lost, right? The nitty-gritty. And then if I define everything, if you don't agree with my definition of something, maybe you'll disagree with how I define further things, like other bigger concepts after that smaller concept. So if you don't agree with how I define a protagonist, you might not agree with how I define an ensemble cast. If you don't agree with how I define conflict, you might not agree with my definition of the plot. If you don't see healing the way I see healing, we might not see what chill is in the same way. And second disclaimer though, my words are not fact. I just speak like this. I gotta do it. I am convinced of my own beliefs based on my experience, my research, and how much thought I've put into this. You have no idea. I really just spent so much time thinking about this. And so if you feel convinced by my words, if you feel like your beliefs are being questioned, then think about it. Maybe I've made some points. And maybe you still disagree. Go on. Share what you think. But think about it first before you disagree. Thank you. So, just to start it off, my working definition of SOL, of slice of life, is that it is a genre that features the daily lives and struggles of a more or less equally important group of people in a narrative sense, group of people in a shared setting. So the sample of shows that I 100% believe are slice of life are Miss Hang, The Reply series, 1997, 94, 88, Prison Playbook, Hospital Playlist, Live, Black Dog, Diary of a Prosecutor, Be Melodramatic, Dear My Friends, and Racket Boys. These shows, I'm sure, definitely slice of life. And if you think, why isn't this drama part of it? Didn't you watch that show? If I consider that to be a contentious drama, like the ones that I see others consider to be SOL, but I personally disagree with, they might be discussed later. We'll see. So let's just get this out of the way. All right. The most common misconception I see is that chill, calm, warm, healing shows are slice of life. First of all, not all slice of life shows are chill and healing. Two words that, are often tied together even if they are also not synonymous. Just because something is chill does not mean it's healing, and vice versa. I have categorized slice of life into three approaches, like subgenres, maybe. I don't know, the vibe. And how they deal with the daily struggles of the characters. So they could be leaning warm, leaning funny, or leaning sad. To me, the warm SOL shows are the Shin PD shows, the Reply Series, Cosplay, Prison Playbook, Dear My Friends. The funny ones are the Shin PD shows again, Be Melodramatic, Diary of a Prosecutor, Racket Boys. And the sad ones are Missing, Live, and Black Dog. Note that they can have, warm, funny, sad moments. Like, it's a mix of all of those. But I classified it to those three major vibes because that's how the general tone of the show is. Right? That's how most problems are approached. They can have humorous moments, even if it's a sad show. Missing has funny moments, right? Be Melodramatic has very sad moments. Dear My Friends has very sad moments. But, in general, this is the vibe that the show gave me when I was watching it. Note that I haven't mentioned chill and healing. They are not subgenres of slice of life to me. Let's define that. Why is it not, the general vibe of a show? Like, what? Cosplay is not just warm and funny, it's also chill. But then I think it's just too vague, right? Chill at the moment is too vague. And I don't think it's a sufficient description of really the entire show is just chill. I feel like, no, it has to dig into a deeper emotion than just chill. So, chill is often described as not having unnecessary drama, and people are pleasant and kind. That's most of the time. And healing, on the other often used term here, I would define healing as catharsis, right? Where people release their emotions and then come out better because of it. Characters, that's why there's a lot of shows dealing with trauma, with mental health, mental illnesses, and they're often considered healing, not slice of life necessarily, but healing, because you see people like tackling their issues and hopefully getting closure from it. Specifically, I was thinking about It's Okay to Not Be Okay. That is definitely not slice of life. It's a little bit of a mellow, went a little bit thriller at some point, but yeah, it's healing because it's really like they are going through a lot and you're really seeing them going through it. And then, they come out better and happier after they deal with the internal stuff, not just, the random mother that came back from the dead. Yeah, so that's like my primary example of a show that deals with those topics and is not slice of life, but is still healing. Also, some people consider shows to be healing if like they personally relate to it, but I didn't include that in my definition because that would limit too many things for me, right? If it's not personally relatable, like what is relatable to a college student with no romantic experience and just like a very straightforward academic life? I relate to Sky Castle then. That's the only show that's going to, hit a nerve in me. Come on, no. So, yeah, I don't consider like, if it's personally relatable, that's healing. That's not fair to 95% of K-dramas. Okay, just to further emphasize why chill and healing aren't synonymous to slice of life, the complete like opposite of those shows that I 100% would call SOL is Live 2018. If you haven't watched that show, trigger warnings, a lot of them just violence and traumatic stuff, but I really love it. I love Nong Hik Kyung. Anyway, Live is slice of life to me because it's not as intense and plot heavy as other police shows. Like, they're not tackling a serial killer or a corruption scandal or whatever. It's just the daily lives of patrol officers and what they go through. Daily life. It's in the actual description of the show. It really wasn't about tackling huge cases or whatever. Yeah. However, it's absolutely not chill. Like, just because it's not going after a big bad doesn't mean that they're not going through heavy issues and they're not tackling those issues constantly. Like, I felt bad when I heavily recommended this show to a listener of the podcast and they ended up feeling very triggered by the content. Hello, if you ever end up listening to this, I'm so sorry. I never, gave any warnings about it. It is a very heavy show at times, and I was able to, handle it fine, but I just didn't think, or it wasn't on my mind that others wouldn't be able to stomach it. So yes, everyone, and to that listener specifically, I'm sorry in advance, but if you can stomach it, it really does touch on a lot of relationships and themes that are very interesting. Not just like personal relationships, just also a lot of societal things. Ugh, gosh. Anyway. Okay. So, yes, slice of life, not chill, but for me, yes, it's a healing in a way because we get to see a lot of characters facing their past or their present struggles and really digging deep to come out of it as a better person and a better police officer. Like, their problems are not solved by arresting a bad guy or rooting out the corruption in the system, whatever usual typical police show would do. They solve their problems-ish by settling into their roles and finding purpose in their jobs and their lives after going through some terrible things. It's about finding their sense of duty. Because, they came into this job at first out of desperation. They couldn't find a job and this seemed to be the best option. Yeah, that's how it started. But you're in here now. You have to give your best effort and you have to dig deep and find what is keeping you here. Like, if this job is so terrible, then get out of it and go back to the rat race of job hunting. You can do it. You've done it once, you can do it again. But you came here out of desperation. So what is keeping you here now? Now that you're not so desperate, now that you know your lives are in danger, you know that there are so many little petty struggles, it's a day-to-day struggle, you're exhausted, you are berated by people on all sides, everything you do is scrutinized. What is keeping you here? That is what the show is tackling. And I love it for that. So to summarize just everything, okay? TLDR, slice of life, chill, and healing are not synonymous and they have to be considered separately. If a show is slice of life, if it's chill, if it's healing, those are three separate questions and they, can coincide, but they do not automatically, happen together. Okay, so my first, major consideration of whether a show is SOL or not is the plot or the lack thereof. And you may ask, how could a show not have a plot? What do you mean? What are you watching if there's no plot? Okay, to clarify that, it's more like there's no villain, no big bad, no major conflict that you're aware of just from the premise itself, nothing to lead up to from the very beginning of the show, or towards after the first act of the show, you kind of know that okay, this is what we're building up to, this is what they have to eventually tackle in the end, or these are the conflicts that are building up to a much bigger conflict, and we can already tell. That's why SOL, it's a daily life show with some like minor plot arcs or individual character journeys to keep the show going, because there can't be absolutely nothing going on. Something has to keep the show moving. And that's why, we have internal conflict. That's why we have like, what do doctors do in their day to day, or what do office workers have to deal with in their day to day lives? And then also, like, what are they personally dealing with as they deal with the daily struggles of what they do for work? Something like that. Theoretically, if there is nothing in the ending that separates the characters from each other, these shows could keep going on. Like, okay, for example, the Reply series. If they didn't grow up and move away from each other, we could theoretically keep on going. I will have comments on that, but yeah, theoretically. In Missing, if Django Red got regularized and they all stayed in one international, like, surely they would all still face a bunch of, stupid office issues and, so many problems could still happen. So many demanding clients or documents that are lost, or, new people, new bosses, new co-workers. So many other problems that could be tackled, but Django Red left, and their story as 4 people in that office, 4 newbies, it's over, I guess. Like, you can't have them together anymore. So their goal of staying in the company is over, and their story is done. And be melodramatic. If Unjong, Jun Yobin's character, if she didn't have to leave to do that documentary, I really think this show could have just gone on and on. Like, it could have gone into like the nitty-gritty of Chun Woo Hee, I forgot her character's name, like her show, how did they go through it as they were filming it, and then the others, of course, they're still continuing their jobs. There's more to do there's more to deal with, right? We could have kept going. In Prison Playbook, if Jaehyuk stayed in jail for 10 more years or something, yeah, there's more to deal with there. There's more time to spend here in prison. So theoretically, you shouldn't run out of stories to tell, because there's no clear point when this should end. There's no clear point from the beginning that, if they, kick out this evil hospital director, then everything will be fine. If we find the killer, everything will be fine. Or if we end up together, then what is the point of this show? Everything will be fine. Right? Theoretically, in Slice of Life, because there is no big bad or big conflict or big hurdle to overcome, and it's just like, well, how am I gonna deal with today? There should be no end in sight. Prison Playbook is the show that comes close to failing this criteria for me. Because from the very beginning, we know it ends when Jaehyuk is released from prison. Right? We kind of know that's going to happen because he's, technically not a bad person who should truly be in prison forever, right? He just defended his sister righteously, but committed violence and had to be punished for it. Okay, sad, but it happens. But we know that, public sentiment is positive towards him, and people know what he was trying to do. He wasn't just mindlessly violent, so it's likely that people will be lenient towards him, or the law will be more forgiving to him. Also, he is the most prominent main character among the Shin PD shows because of how long it takes for the squad the so-called squad to settle around him, and how often the members of that squad get written out and replaced and whatever, and they just change up constantly, but the core of the show is him. You may ask, why'd you mention characters out of nowhere? Well, that's because it's the next criterion to consider. Speaking of squad, I think this is one of the most important factors that I have noticed in SOL shows, the Ensemble Cast. I read a tweet about saying something like, just because a show is about a lot of people doesn't mean it's slice of life. If so, every drama could be slice of life at this point. Just very paraphrased version. I forgot even who said it, where I found it. And I totally agree with that tweet. Now I have to clarify what counts as a lot of people to me. Right? I have to clarify that. When do I consider something to be an ensemble cast? How does that differ from like a main cast and the supporting characters? Okay, first, let's talk about the protagonists. What is a protagonist? We all kind of have an idea. The top bill, the main actors with the most agency in the show, the conflict revolves around them. When their story is over, the entire story feels over as well. And if it's more than one person, because it's possible for, there to be multiple protagonists, they should have a shared struggle or shared goal. Right? Technically in a main couple show, that's multiple protagonists in a way. If the goal is to, resolve all their issues and then end up together, or break the boundaries of society to end up together, or in Stranger, Wang Shimok and Han Yojin finding the truth through their own connections and agencies. Yeah, multiple protagonists, yeah. For example, okay, let's clear up that concept. Something I learned in my K-drama class, because I took a class on K-dramas. I will always flex this. I love the fact that I took a class on this. Anyway, in Missing, we assume that Jangure is the protagonist and he's the sole main character. We literally made that error in a discussion forum at some point, and then in the lecture, our prof was like, nope, the four of them are main characters. Jangure is the instigator among the four, but they're all, kind of pursuing the same goal. Like, each of the four new hires have this overarching journey throughout the drama, right? Of staying in the company, struggling to survive in the company. But they have different issues and obstacles that prevent them from achieving that. Jangure, it's just the whole stigma against him, just being a high school graduate or getting his GED, and all of the stigma. Also the connections. And Yi, it's sexism, gender discrimination. With Becky, it's having a manager that with Becky, it's like his pride really in struggling with his role, believing that he's cut out for more, but also not excelling in his own place. Gosh, I love him. And with Sokyul, it's having a manager who he just disagrees with, who he just can't work with. So they all have different like subplots and issues to deal with on the day-to-day. But in general, they're all here to stay. And they're given like, pretty, not completely equal screen time. But you'd wonder like, why do I need to constantly see this supporting character dealing with his disagreeable boss? Right? If I didn't see Sokyul as, a kind of important character who develops a relationship with Jangure, who I saw as the main character at the time, like, if I didn't see the importance of his role also and the relationship of the four of them, I wouldn't have paid attention to his scenes with his manager. Each of them are given like screen time to deal with their issues and with their personal struggles. And it's not like, a supporting character who gets like an arc in one episode where, all their backstories fleshed out and all that. Like, it's not a one-off incident where they get a spotlight. No, they consistently get a spotlight throughout the entire show. And that's why I think they're prominent enough to be main characters, to be four main protagonists, with Jangure being the instigator, who really sets things in motion because we spend the most time on him. I said a lot of words. Yeah. But, moving on from Missing, when there is no major conflict that has to be resolved by the protagonist. They're not trying to oust the corrupt director or something, or yeah, the corrupt doings of the entire company. It's not like that. When there is no major conflict, it's more natural for the burden of carrying the show and its themes to be shared among several characters that are narratively equally important. And that is where the concept of the ensemble cast comes in. So, based on Google, it's multiple principal actors, main actors, who are assigned roughly equal amounts of screen time. How do we define screen time? Forgive me. I have to define it. So, how do we define that ensemble cast? Personally, not just based on the Google definition. I would determine that in three ways. Like, how do you know that these actors are all the main actors and they are part of the ensemble cast? First, screen time, which is kind of explained. They get a lot of time to deal with their issues. Sometimes they come together and sometimes they just do their own thing. Second, billing. Guys, billing is basically the most important part of this whole discussion of whether the characters, these are main characters or not. Are they the top bills? Are they the first people? Are they the ones who are paid the most here because they bring in the most sponsorships and attention and press coverage and all that? That leads us to the third thing I look at, which is the promotion. Like, who's on the posters, man? Who's sent to do interviews to promote the show? Yeah, you can say shows have a lot of characters and they're all important to the drama. But okay, they're all important to the drama, but who's being sent to do interviews? Are they in the press conference of the show? Like in Cosplay, yeah, you'd see, yeah, some would say like, all characters are important. The residents are important. The patients are important. The staff, they're important. Yeah, but who's on the poster? Who's answering interview questions? It's just the main five. For example, of like ensemble casts. Among all the Shin PD shows, I've watched all five of them, okay? Hospital Playlist has the most even ensemble cast. Like, you could really say that the lacking five are equally important. And for those who disagree, I will talk about the other Shin PD shows. In Prison Playbook, I already mentioned how it's obvious that Jaehyuk is the main character. It took so many episodes for his squad to be formed around him. So he is the core of that show. Once again, I said that this show is very close to failing the criteria. Okay. And in the Reply series, you can tell that it's an ensemble cast, yeah. But there is a main girl and the love triangle around her. So, when the love triangle is formed, like when we've established that there are these two guys who like the one main girl, that's when they all start having separate storylines. And then the show becomes more of a main couple and the supporting characters show. It's true, guys. Just accept it. That's how reply shows are. That's the structure, the format of all three of them. And I've watched all three of them, unlike most people. Okay? So, I believe in this. Okay, now that we've mentioned the main couple, there are main couples in slice of life shows. Let's talk about romance, right? Many SOL shows have aspects of romance, but the main focus of the show is not about the two getting together and then deciding like, okay, it's happy ending time, the story can stop, like the other people in that supposed ensemble cast, they never mattered. The main couple is together, so we don't really need to spend any more time on this. Good example of a slice of life show with a main couple romance is Be Melodramatic. First, the three girls are equally important. You cannot say that only Jinju, that was her name, only Jinju Chunwoo's character mattered. No, Chon Yobin's character mattered. The other girl, I'm sorry, I forgot her name, she also mattered just as much. So yeah, they're equally important. Nice. Second, Jinju and Bomsu, that's his name, they are the main couple, yes. But their story doesn't end when they get together, right? Because their main story, actually, the main reason why they are paired up together is because they're making Jinju's drama. The nice thing is that they're doing the personal, professional relationship switcheroo struggles. They're together. That's fact. Now they go back to really working on their show. In contrast, on this show, the supporting characters of Somin and her manager, Min Jun, slowly vanish in the show after they get together because that really was just their arc. They're just supporting characters who needed to end up together. And there's no need to keep them around and drag out their screen time for some random reason, give them fluff and then some breakup angst for whatever reason just to keep them around. They've finished their story. It's good. Love it. We love to see it. Bad example of romance in a slice of life show? The Reply series. That's right. Yeah, I mentioned how it starts out as a great ensemble cast show and then it slowly turns into a romance show. Like they drag out that mystery husband every single time. And that's my main problem with the show. It's sort of a slice of life coming of age teenager show. But coming of age always seems to be tied to love. And that's why they always end up together after a time skip because they're more mature and they're clear about their feelings when they became adults or something. I don't know if I'm trying to, explain a theme, but to me it's just like it's romance, whatever. That it may be possible that there is that kind of explanation, or it's just the only story that Shin PD and writer Lee can come up with because they're just not the best writer PD duo ever. Guys, more on that some other day in the future, whatever. Okay, here's an example of a show that I don't consider to be slice of life. Run On. Okay, listen. Many call this SOL because it's very chill. We all know what I'm going to say about that, so let's just ignore that. I do not consider this to be slice of life because I truly think it's about romance and not about daily life. I think even the writer described it as a show about learning to communicate with each other's languages or like the worlds that they lived in and express their feelings and their love, something like that. Something about Miju communicates through movies and language and translation, and Son Kyom's world is just sports and fame and whatever, right? And it's about them bridging the gap of how far their lives are from each other, something like that. Some may say, okay, aren't there 4 leads in this show? Isn't it an ensemble cast? It's not a love triangle show. However, to me, it's a main couple and second lead couple show. You know why? The posters. Look at the posters. Most of them are Miju and Sonkyung. A lot of shows tend to do, that thing where there are 4. They're the main lead and then the second lead couple. But once again, main couple, second lead couple. Or Startup, The Great Pretender. There is a main couple and you'd think the other 2 second leads will end up as a couple, but no, it's a love triangle show and Injay is just some random girl, some girl who's given so little screen time and a useless story just to be a foil to Dalmi. God! Startup! Moving on, back to Run On. My last criterion is they don't share a setting. They don't share a world that they all, operate in. Because all of them have different occupations that are very loosely connected. So they don't really have a shared goal. So to me, they're just not an ensemble cast. And it's about romance. So it's not slice of life just because it's chill. It can be a chill show, but it's not slice of life. Now that we're on the topic of romance, I'm just gonna put out all my thoughts, okay? Let me be. I think romance can be defined in a spectrum going from mellow to romance. It's the middle ground where you can't really tell, and then the rom-com side of it. Mellow, has more somber tones. It still has light moments, but generally the themes and the events are dramatic. For example, One Spring Night, You Are My Spring. Romance, the middle part of the spectrum, it's not as over dramatic, as mellow, but also not comedic like rom-com. So these are the ones most likely to be described as chill, run on when the camellia blooms. Yes. And to me, rom-coms are comedic. Wow, surprise, surprise. But they still have, of course, they could still have some emotional moments, of course, but it's really mostly romance and comedy. For example, Fight for My Way, Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha. It is what it is. So that is how I see romance. And my last criterion is kind of a culmination of everything. If there's no conflict and if it's an ensemble cast, they have to have a shared setting. This group of people, they exist in a shared setting because there's no actual conflict that one of them or all of them need to resolve. So this shared setting is what ties them together. There was a time that I misconstrued workplace dramas as slice of life. But they're also not synonymous to different things. I would define a workplace drama, aside from being set in a workplace, not necessarily like an office, me saying like, no, it's just any workplace. And it's also a show that focuses mostly on their struggles at work and less on their personal lives. And to me, many workplace dramas are just plot heavy. Also, slice of life, they go so deeply into people's lives and how it all bleeds into each other, personal and professional, all that. For example, great workplace drama, Hot Stove League. Like, I once thought that, I don't know anything about the characters in Hot Stove League because we rarely saw their personal lives outside of work. But why do we have to? I know a decent amount about them just through their work ethic, their principles, their relationship, and interactions with others. We don't need to know about their families, their high school friends, their full career history before they ended up in the dreams to say that we know them, they work well as a team, they have some issues they have their own agenda, they have their own problems, but in general, they work here and they're doing their best. Somehow there is a shared goal, right? To keep the dreams alive, to prepare it sufficiently for the next season, but along the way, some people get added to that team, some people, leave, some people have their own agenda to deal with. But yeah, okay. Another example of a great workplace drama, Designated Survivor 60 Days. Once again, we see so little of their lives outside of the Blue House. But does that matter? Does it matter? I know these people. I know what they're trying to achieve. At least I hope so. I hope I can trust the people that I consider part of, Park Mujin's team. Yeah. And obviously, just looking at how this show is paced, it's very much not a slice of life show, even if it's a workplace drama. All that to say, TLDR, not all workplace dramas are slice of life, and not all slice of life shows are workplace dramas. For example, the Reply series, Dear My Friends. What matters in slice of life is that they have something strong in common that ties them to each other, and it makes sense for them to be interconnected because of it. So that's it for me today. Going back to the working definition, slice of life is a genre that features the daily lives and struggles of a more or less equally important group of people in a narrative sense, a group of people in a shared setting. I have seen some tweets of people dissing slice of life because people just jump on that bandwagon and call every K-drama with like some faux inspirational lines of dialogue as SOL, and that's why no one knows what it actually means anymore. If almost everything is slice of life, then nothing is slice of life. Once again, this is just my interpretation of the genre based on the shows that I've watched and how I classify them. And if you take one thing and only one thing from this episode, please remember that chill shows are not necessarily slice of life, and slice of life is not always chill. They're not mutually exclusive, okay? They can coincide at times, but they are not synonymous. That's it for me today. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you soon. Thanks for tuning in. Feel free to leave a comment, like, subscribe, follow, and tell me what you thought about today's episode. See you soon!